So I have before me the Lenovo Legion 7 versus the Lenovo Legion Slim 7. Two powerful laptops, different price points, and different thickness and weight, however, very, very similar chassis. So we're gonna get into the features and functionality of each one, and then we're gonna get into the performance benchmarks to see which one is right for you. Now, first and foremost, they have, like I said, the exact same design. They have a very nice aluminum band that wraps the entire chassis of each one. So the build quality on these laptops is, second to none. They have great rigidity. They have great passing of the tap test on both the bottom cover and the top cover. Both laptops are just assembled very well. Again, it's one of my favorite 16-inch laptop designs of this year and last year. But what I think I like most about this year's model is how similar they are. So no matter if you want more performance, well then go for the 7. If you want a thinner chassis and still great performance, you'll probably want to go for the Slim 7. But we'll get into all the performance details, like I said, later in the video. Now let's get into some head-to-head comparisons so you can see which one's better for you. First and foremost, here's a quick sample of each of the webcams so you can see those in use.
This is the webcam on the Legion 7 and a little sample of the audio for you as well. This is the webcam on the Lenovo Legion Slim 7 and a little sample of the audio for you as well.
And if you're curious about the differences in the speakers on each of the laptops, here's a quick sample of the audio for you as well. Now, the keyboard decks are extremely similar. Actually, they're identical, and even the trackpad as well. Really, the biggest difference is going to be the RGB backlit keyboard on the 7 versus the non-RGB backlit keyboard on the Slim 7. There's tons of RGB on the 7. As you can see, you have RGB here, you have RGB out of all of the vents on the chassis. Vents over here, there it is. And then you have RGB on the logo on the top of the lid. You have no RGB on this Slim 7. Now the ports are a little bit different between each of the laptops. On the left side panel, they are the same. We have two USB Type-Cs on the left side panel. On the back of the chassis, we have very similar ports, except the Legion 7 is gonna have some extras. It's going to have a network port, it's going to have a USB-C port, but then everything else will be the same. So you have the addition of those two ports. And then of course we have HDMI and two USB Type A's with our power adapter. Now, on the right side panel is where things get interesting, because for me, this makes a big difference for a creator like myself. I like having the SD card slot on the Slim 7. You have an extra USB Type C on the 7, but I think that SD card reader is more valuable than having just an additional USB Type C. You actually have 4 USB Type Cs on the Legion 7 and 2 on the Slim 7. Now, I know I glossed over the weight and thickness earlier, but it's only about a pound difference between the 7 and the Slim 7. So about 5.5 pounds for the Legion 7 and about 4.5 pounds for the Legion Slim 7. And actually, the Slim 7 is only a few millimeters thinner than the 7. Now, before we move forward, I forgot to give you a sample of the keyboard and trackpad in use, so here's a quick audio sample for you. Now the Slim 7 actually has the slightly brighter and more color accurate screen, just ever so slightly. So if you're looking for a slightly brighter, slightly more color accurate screen, I would lean you towards the Slim 7. You can see the results coming up on the screen for both laptops now. Now, if you're curious about the pricing differences between the Legion 7 and the Legion Slim 7, I'll put links in the description below. And of course, if you do use that link to make a purchase, I will get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. But of course, that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. Now, I did notice something that I thought was pretty important when reviewing the 5i Pro and the 5 Pro against the Legion 7. And that is the fact that the Slim 7 and the regular Legion 7 only have a toggle switch for hybrid mode, as you see here. You can't actually click into hybrid mode and make any custom selections. With the 5 Pro and 5i Pro, you can choose to do dedicated GPU, hybrid only using the CPU. So there's just a lot more custom functionality for the 5i Pro and the 5 Pro than with the Legion 7, which surprised me quite a lot. So if you want, maybe check out that full head-to-head review of the 5i and the 5 Pro versus the Legion 7 to get some more details on that. Now, if you weren't aware, Lenovo sent over 3 Legion 5 Pros for us to give away once we reach 100,000 subscribers. So definitely tap that subscribe button, share this video out, like it, drop a comment, anything you can do to help us reach 100,000 subscribers, and then we'll kick off the giveaway. And you could have a chance to enter to win one of these bad boys. So look for details in a video to come later on my channel once we reach 100,000 subscribers. All right, without further ado, let's jump into the performance benchmarks where hopefully we can wrap up your decision-making process between the Legion Slim 7 and the Legion 7. Now, first and foremost, in Geekbench single core and multi-core, you can see that actually in single core, the Legion Slim 7 wins out. Now, as we head into multi-core for Geekbench, the Legion 7 edges it out by just a tiny bit again. Now, the same story pretty much happens in R20 and then both R23 single core and multi-core. And I am so glad that we don't have to make our decision only off of simulated benchmarks because the actual real-world benchmarks tell a different story. Now, looking at Blender Classroom, though the Slim 7 is not far behind, the Legion 7 still wins out in Blender Classroom. Now, as we move forward into Autodesk 3ds Max, the lead widens as we see the 7 with its 12 gigs of VRAM in the GPU versus the Slim with its 8 gigs of VRAM in the GPU start to take that lead and spread it out a little bit. Now, in Autodesk Maya, we again see a bigger lead take place with a 238 compared to the Legion 7's 298. In PTC Creo, we see the Legion 7 score a 260 versus a 210 out of the Slim 7. And then in SolidWorks, we see a 287, one of the best scores I've seen out of any laptop in SolidWorks, even laptops equipped with workstation GPUs, versus the Slim 7 with its 160. So honestly, the Slim 7 ain't too shabby. It's thinner, it's lighter, it's more affordable, and it's pretty darn close to the Legion 7. So, let me know what you think. Comment below. Let me know, are you surprised? Did you expect that? Does that make you want to consider the Slim 7? Or are you still liking the fancy, Legion 7? I'm super curious. Let me know. Now, as we move on to Photoshop, the gap definitely widens. We have a 927 versus a 1109 from the Legion 7. However, if you're above 800 in a Photoshop benchmark, you really should have no issues in Photoshop. If you're using tons and tons of layers and maybe effects and all that, then maybe you'd have an advantage with the Legion 7. But honestly, the Slim 7 with a 927 is a great score. I really don't think you would need all that performance. And keep in mind, this has 32 gigs of RAM, where this has 16. So if you were to upgrade the one RAM stick that you have access to with the Slim 7, then you would in fact possibly see a much higher score in the thousands to 1100s, especially if you swap that 8 gig stick for like a 32 gig stick. I think you could probably see 11 to 1200 out of the Slim 7. So keep in mind, it's honestly more of the RAM giving the higher score for this Photoshop benchmark than it is that stronger GPU, because Photoshop doesn't use the GPU that much. Now, moving on to After Effects, as you see, After Effects, we have a slightly higher score with the Legion 7. Again, that's going to be, a mix of the GPU and the RAM. We see a 798 compared to a 918. over 100 points. So definitely some advantages on the Legion 7 with more GPU power because a lot of the graphics processing is being poured into that GPU. The RAM is helpful, but not as helpful as we're seeing it in Photoshop. Now on Playback, as far as Playback is concerned, definitely an advantage with the GPU for Playback. We're seeing 395 drop frames in 6K B-RAW compared to the 788 in 6K B-RAW out of the Slim 7. And then we're seeing 2,271 for red footage compared to the Slim 7 with 4,304 drop frames. So punch for punch, if you want smoother playback, if you're a 6K video editor, the 12 gigs of VRAM is definitely going to support you in that. And the 32 gigs of RAM compared to 16. Those are both helpful. But out of all the tests, one that surprised me the most was the export times out of Premiere Pro. We saw a 3-minute and 9-second export time out of the Slim 7, but we saw a 3-minute and 38-second export time out of the Legion 7. So a 30-second advantage by going with the Slim 7 over the Legion 7. So that actually surprised me quite a bit. Now, as we move on to 6K, we saw a 17-minute and 53-second export time for 6K B-RAW versus an 1812. Not a huge difference there. But it is about 30 seconds faster once again. Now moving on to DaVinci Resolve, you're going to get a slightly faster export time out of the Slim 7. Nothing substantial, about 20 seconds for DaVinci Resolve. They both had smooth playback in DaVinci Resolve. If you're a Resolve user, playback will be good for both laptops. But the export times, we saw a little bit of an advantage out of the Slim 7. Now, which laptop runs cooler? We have two laptops with identical processors. Which one handles it better? And if you're looking for a cool, quiet laptop, I would go for the Slim 7. We saw 59 degrees Celsius in quiet mode at 40 decibels of fan noise compared to the Legion 7 with 76 degrees Celsius, slightly quieter on the fan noise at 35 decibels, but is definitely a cooler laptop by choosing the Slim 7. Now, you're also going to have a slightly faster export time. So honestly, as far as the export times and the cool and quiet thermals and decibels, the Slim 7 to me has a slight advantage over the Legion 7. Now, which one will keep you more on the go? What's the battery life for each of these laptops? Now, looking at the Legion Slim 7, we have 8 hours and 30 minutes on the Passmark productivity and 6 hours and 30 minutes streaming video playback, 4 hours for Photoshop, and 2 hours and 57 minutes for Premiere Pro. However, the Legion 7 gets slightly better battery life results. We have 8 hours, 7 hours and 32 minutes, 6 hours and 9 minutes, and 4 hours and 31 minutes. Now, I ran these tests multiple times, tried to get the exact same settings, and I still saw an advantage by going with the Legion 7. You might see less of an advantage or more of an advantage depending on the settings that you run. I ran these at 60 Hertz screen refresh rate, hybrid mode, battery saver mode, 25% screen brightness. That's how I got the results here. And I had the RGB backlighting off all over the computer on the Legion 7, definitely the keyboard on both laptops as well. Now, one of the advantages of a laptop would be upgrade path, and there's a better upgrade path on the Legion 7. You can actually upgrade 2 of the RAM sticks, both RAM sticks on the Legion 7, where you can only upgrade 1 of the RAM sticks of the 2 that are in the computer on the Legion Slim 7. So you're going to have a stronger upgrade path on the Legion 7 compared to the Slim, so that could possibly lead you to choose the Legion 7 over the Slim. I'm so curious which one you are considering choosing. Definitely comment below and let me know. And if you are considering making a purchase, I would love if you use those links. It supports the channel and I'm grateful when you all do. Otherwise, definitely subscribe to help us reach 100,000 subscribers so we can kick off the Lenovo Legion 5 Pro giveaway. I'll see y'all here in the next video.